Joining us now is retired IDF colonel and director of the International Institute for Counterterrorism at Reichman University, Miri Eisen. Thank you for joining. Hi, can you please tell us about the CIA chief visiting Israel? This comes after a series of top U.S. official visits. What is the meaning of all of this?
We're at this stage that the international community, but I'd say at the forefront, the United States of America, are trying to, what I'm going to call, contain this conflict, meaning it's only Israel against the Hamas terrorists in the Gaza Strip, and they're trying to contain it, both from spreading to Hezbollah, where it already exists, but at a lower level, let alone for it to spread further to the different Shiite proxies that are attacking U.S. forces throughout the Middle East, and of course, behind that, all Iran. So there's a variety of different ways of trying to contain that. Everybody right now in the world, and I say in that sense, also in Israel, nobody here wants a regional conflict. Having said that, this is part of the challenges of how do you contain it and at the same time make sure that you are destroying Hamas capabilities, that you are rescuing the hostages, and what do you do with Hezbollah in Lebanon and the other side of the Israeli border if you don't open up a front there? So it's a complex arena that you need to talk about to be sure that we're safe, that we are protected, that we are defended, that we're doing what needs to be done, which in this case is a very challenging one. Do you open another front or not? Do you wait for Hezbollah to attack or not? And if you don't open that front, what do you do with Hezbollah on the day after? We're all focused on the Gaza Strip. We're all focused on Hamas capabilities, but there is that question there, and that's where both the United States and the international community have really important input into what could happen.
The U.S. military mobilized a nuclear submarine into the Middle East. What's the message here? It's clearly a message of deterrence. Is it deterrence to Iran? You're speaking of other fronts that might be opening.
Sivan, there's no question right now, this is not something just new. The United States has sent the most weaponry capabilities into the greater Middle East. When we say Middle East, it's both on the side of the Mediterranean Sea, that's to the west of Israel, and throughout the Gulf, the Red Sea, surrounding the area of both Yemen and the Persian Gulf, the Arab Gulf. And so we have a lot of U.S. presence in this area. They're not the only international one, but they're the main one. What does a nuclear submarine mean? For me, that is very much looking towards Iran and the Islamic regime of Iran and the way that it is trying to utilize, what a wonderful word, all of its different Shiite proxies against Israel. We're just the little Satan, and against the United States, the big Satan. Those different proxy forces in a country called Yemen, in Iraq, certainly in Syria, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and additional groups that are both in Lebanon and in Syria are all right now both attacking and threatening Israel and the United States. When the United States brings here a nuclear submarine, that's looking at Iran. Iran is a country of edging into 90 million people. The Islamic regime have both an enormous Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Many of you have heard of that. In addition, they use all of these different proxies. This is threatening against that country, much more than participating in any way with the fight of Israel against Hamas. We're doing that. It could also be of interest looking, as I said, at the proxies of the Iranian presence, both in Lebanon and in Syria, Iraq, as I said before, but the focus back towards Iran.
Thank you, Miri Eisen. Miri, we spoke...
That kind of thing that you just showed, that's the thing. Look at me, I'm smiling. What a horrific story, but I'm smiling. Wow.
Mm-hmm. We're getting initial reports, Miri, about a suspected terror attack in the Old City in Jerusalem. The terrorist is apparently neutralized and one woman was injured. We'll be sure to bring more details as the investigations continue. I do want to ask you about these kind of threats internally, and of course we discussed before the external threats, the different fronts that may or may not be opening up on the northern border with Hezbollah in addition to Hamas in the south. What can you tell us about this?
So, Sivan, the way I would put it is that all of the fronts are open. That's what perhaps the international community that we're talking to right now don't understand. It's a full-scale war that Hamas started, that we're attacking in that sense and trying to destroy in the Gaza Strip. But Hezbollah are already fighting on the northern. They're just doing it at a low level. And as all these different Shiite proxies, Yemen firing missiles at Israel, it's the Houthis, etc. But when we talk about that domestic arena, Hamas, from the beginning, from October 7th, and every single day, and not just Hamas, but mainly Hamas, are constantly trying to present what they did, the atrocities, they present them, and people need to understand, I'm quoting them, okay? They're saying it's resistance. They are saying that everybody should join in, and they are trying to pose in a very clear-cut way Israel's response to trying to eradicate Hamas as being something totally different. And I say that because we should expect, and we all need to be on the alert of individuals who are impacted by what Hamas says. I'll even give a different kind of example. Yesterday, an Israeli member of Knesset, who is inside a party which is a Muslim Arab party, said very harsh things, and she was fired by the head of her party because she said to the public that the October 7th atrocities could not have taken place because it is against Islam. He fired her, and she retracted her statement. And in that sense, it's like this little thing that went under the radar. Why is it important? Because within the Arabic speaking, within the Muslim world in general, Hamas have been selling the most fake, horrific version of October 7th and the aftermath. They have not talked about the atrocities. They say that they attacked soldiers. They have not in any way said anything about the hostages, and they continue to pose themselves as the defenders of Palestinians. So when that narrative comes out, there are going to be people who believe it. There are going to be people who act on it, and we need to be wary. It can be anywhere in that sense. It's part of the challenge of what's going on. That's what terrorism does. It's not just the lying and that fake aspect of a totally fake narrative. It is the inspiration that they're trying to show in their terms, which is so horrifying.
Miri
so as I
Eisen.
say, we all need to be careful.
Miri Eisen, thank you very much for your input.